Hi, this is Howard Kaplan and Knopman Marks. I'm here with my colleague Dave, and we'd like to give you some tips on preparing for the Series 66 exam. Dave, what would be the most important takeaway you could recommend to a student who perhaps just took their Series 7 or 79 and how to think about the Series 66 in the most important way?
Sure. The 66 is a hard exam. And in my opinion, it's harder than the Series 7 or the Series 79 in that it goes into a lot of depth and a lot of nuance. And the single recommendation that I make more than any other is you have to read the textbook twice. You read it once for familiarity and exposure. You read it a second time to pick up the granular details. And it's that second read that really elevates the points. What I find all the time is students will come back to me and they'll say, on the real exam, items that they were tested on came from a single sentence or two sentences in this 600-page textbook.
Right, I've heard that.
Yeah, and you have to have read it twice, and sometimes you don't even remember. You don't affirmatively know, oh, I read that and this is the right answer.
Right.
But that answer choice is just like more attractive to you.
Right.
And so reading twice is just so important for this test.
And since there's so much information out there, are there any sections in particular that a student should give special attention to at the cost of others?
Well, not at the cost of others, but as you want to emphasize your study time and allocate it, you have to remember that the law piece makes up 50% of the exam.
Right.
But when you think about how much material is there, there's actually less law stuff than product stuff. So if you're going to be studying, 200 pages that represents 50 questions or 400 pages that represents 50 questions, you're going to be more efficient and get more return on your study investment in that law section.
Right.
So I always tell people, if you can become a master of the law, outperform there, aim for that 80 to 85% level on the law section, that gives you a little flexibility on the product side,
right?
Because you just have a lot to learn over there. There's one other piece though, on the law stuff, it's hard, but once you get it, it's kind of black and white. Once you know the rule, you can apply it again and again and again. And when you think 66, the product stuff is more gray. It's suitability, it's recommendations, it's what would be the best thing that the regulators thinks for this person. And so there's more nuance there. And so for that reason, I also like to see people commit a little more study time to the law than maybe the product side.
So if, like some people, I'm not particularly strong with math, so you're suggesting that that's not going to be a big detriment to my ability to succeed on this test?
That's exactly it. And on the 66, in fact, there are formulaic questions, there are mathematical questions, but only 5% of the exam.
Okay.
So yes, I want you to study that stuff, and in the materials you'll see these items covered, but I don't want you to go crazy. Because the student who spends all this time trying to master the dozens of potentially tested formulas will only get 5 chances to deliver that.
Right.
So your study time's better spent on overall recommendations and characteristics if you want to be on the product side, and of course on the law section too.
That's great insight. From a study perspective, I'm curious, do you recommend doing a lot of studying in just a few days leading up to this exam? Or should, like a Series 7, which was a bigger exam, should I space it out over longer stretches of time? What's more efficient, do you think?
Well, many students come to the 66 right off the back of the 7.
Yeah.
And that's a great sequencing because the 7 lays out the foundation for all those securities products. Then when you get to 66 and you're kind of applying them to different situations, and in what I would describe in a more nuanced way, maybe a little bit of a more challenging way than the Series 7, you take it to the next level.
Right.
For all these tests though, you have to master a tremendous amount of knowledge and a lot of information. This is not something that you want to cram for example, the week just before.
Right.
It's going to take 3 or 4 weeks where you're doing the reading, then you're doing the drilling, and then of course going back to the reading to flesh out those areas that you may be weak on.
Right. So would you characterize the exam as being sort of more of a tricky exam, which I know a lot of people have sometimes characterized it as, or is it just a straightforward assessment of whether I know my stuff or not?
Well, maybe somewhere in between. There's a consistent set of feedback from students that it's a tough exam because the questions are long, and the questions can be a little vague. And what they've done on these tests, I think, is they make the second best answer choice pretty darn good. You have to be able to distinguish what's the best answer from other answers that could, in a different universe, be the best answer. And that becomes very frustrating for students. So you want to be sure that you're doing that.
Yeah, I sometimes recommend to my students that, understand why the wrong answers are wrong, because all they have to do is just change one word and that becomes the correct answer.
Yeah.
So I think it's troubleshooting through it that way, which sounds like the most effective strategy here.
Very much so. In the end, Series 66 is a tough exam, and with a good study effort though, you can be successful.